ISIS summarization and also rote leaking. In this video, I'm going to talk about two topics. The first is ISIS summarization and the second is ISIS rote leaking. Let me to start with the ISIS summarization. Summarization is a famous feature that we can use it for better usage of the resources in every routing protocol. We can use summarization for using with the more efficiency of the routing protocols. For example, we can use summarization to decrease the CPU usage, to decrease the bandwidth usage, and to decrease the memory usage. And all of these features means that we are using summarization for more performance. Look at this scenario. In this scenario, first I'm going to show you how you can configure summarization in ISIS and how we can verify the summarization in the ISIS. In the left side, we have a scenario. I am using this scenario for the ISIS summarization, and also we have another scenario here at the right side. I'm using this scenario, the right scenario, for the ISIS rote leaking. Look at here, this is the scenario for rote leaking, and this is the scenario for summarization. Because summarization and rote leaking can be related to each other in some features, because of them I'm going to talk about them in one video. Okay, let me start with the talking about the ISIS summarization. Left scenario, look at here. In this scenario we have three routers or three ISS. The first is router 1, this is the L1 router, and router 1 has 4 loopback interface or 4 connected networks. And also here we have one level 1 2 router, the router 2. In router 2, as you can see, we have one interface in level 1 database in level 1 area, and another interface in the level 2 area. Okay, and after that we have the router 3. Router 3 is the L2 router, and as you can see, router 3 connected to the router 2. Normally, you know that the ISIS should advertise the routes inside of the L1 database or L1 area to the L2 database. For example, without any special configuration, after configuring the ISIS, the router 1 should advertise or should inject these networks, for example, these 4 networks, and also the IP address of the link between router 2 and router 1. Let me write here 10.1.20/24 to the L2 database. By default, R2 should do it. You know that this is a one-way process. Why? Because R2 should advertise the attachment bit, or should set the attachment bit in the L1 area, and it should advertise or inject the routes in the L1 area to the L2 for example database. This means that from L2 database, by default, R2 should not inject any routes inside the L1 database. This is a one-way process, and this is the default behavior of the ISIS. How we can use summarization in ISIS, such as OSPF, you can use summarization command, okay, only in the L1 2 routers. Means we can use summarization to advertising less networks, and this means that with the advertising of less networks, we can use the bandwidth better, we can use the CPU better, we can use the memory better, and this is the for example the less resource usage with summarization. How we can configure it, I am going to talk about the command, but before the configuration, if you configure summarization, R2 only should advertise the summary of the subnets into the L2 database. For example, it can advertise, instead of these 5 networks, the 2 networks inside the for example L2 database. The summary of these 4 networks is equal to 172.16.00/22. This is a summary of this 4 network, and as you can see, this is the this means that we are using less bandwidth to advertise these routes, and also we are using less CPU to process these routes, and finally less memory to keep them in the routing table of the router 3 or other routers of the level 1 2. Okay, The multiple groups of addresses means, for example, these 4 addresses can be summarized for a given level. Routes learned from other routing protocols also can be summarized, and you know that this command, the summarization command, also reduces the size of the LSPs or link state packets, and thus the link state database LSDB. It also helps network stability because a summary advertisement is depending on many more specific routes. A single route flap does not cause a summary advertisement to flap in most cases. Means when one of these networks, for example, failed, we don't need to send another summary. Why? Because the summary should be advertised until all of the subnets inside the summary are failed, and in that time we need to send another summary address. The drawback of summary address is that other routers or other routes might have less information to calculate the most optimal routing table for all individual destination. Okay, let me to show you how we can configure the summarization in this scenario. I'm going to show you first the notepad file of the configuration of IP addressing and also ISIS without summarization in this scenario. I configured R1 with 5 interfaces. The first is fast Ethernet 00 with the IP address of 10.121/24.255.255.255.0 with the no shutdown command, and also I configured 4 loopback interface: loopback 0, loopback 1, loopback 2, and loopback 3. Loopback 0's IP address is 172.16.01/24. Loopback 1 IP address is 172.16.11/24, and loopback 2's IP address is 172.16.21/24, and finally the loopback 3's IP address is 172.16.31/24. Then I enabled ISIS on the router 1 with the router ISIS command. This is the net address 49.0.0.02. This is the area ID of the, for example, R1, and then this is the system ID, and finally the encell. IS type is level 1. I enabled log adjacency change. Okay, you know that by default ISIS doesn't show us the log adjacency. Okay, then change all passive interface loopback 0, passive interface loopback 1, loopback 2, and also loopback 3. This is the configuration of the router 1, okay, adjacency. And then in router 2, we have 2 physical interface, fast Ethernet 00 and fast Ethernet 01. The IP address of the fast Ethernet 00 is 10.232/24, and the fast Ethernet 01's IP address is 10.122/24 with no shutdown command. After that, I enabled ISIS. This is the level 1-2 router. The net address is 49.0.0.02. This is the area ID, and then system ID, unique system ID, and after that encell. I also enabled log adjacency change all. Don't forget that in this scenario, because this is the level 1-2 router, the router 2, I didn't configure IS type on the router 2. Okay, and after that, interface fast Ethernet 00, IP router ISIS, this interface, and then ISIS circuit type level 2, and finally interface fast Ethernet 01, IP router ISIS, and ISIS circuit type level 1. Let me to show you the configuration of the router 3. Here we have the configuration of router 3, en conft hostname R3. Then interface fast Ethernet 00 with the IP address of 10.233/24. And then I enabled router ISIS with the net address of 49.0.0.0.1. This is the area address. And then system ID. And finally, IS type is level 2. And then log adjacency change all. Okay. And after that, IP router ISIS on the interface fast Ethernet 00. Now we can copy the configuration into the CLIs of the router 1, router 2, and router 3. Without summarization, I will show you the, for example, the default behavior. After that, I'm going to show you how we can use the summary address command. Copy, and then let me to go to the router 1 CLI. This is the router 1 CLI. And this is the configuration of the ISIS and also IP addressing. Then R2. This is the configuration of R2. Copy and pasting on the R2 CLI. And